The Netherlands is set to hold fresh elections after its government collapsed when far-right leader Geert Wilders withdrew his party from the governing coalition. The Prime Minister, Dick Schoof, has stepped down, and it's all to do with the country's immigration policy. Leiden University assistant professor Simon Otjes is an expert in Dutch politics, and he joins me now. Simon, good to have you with us on the program.
Thanks.
Now, the collapse of this coalition was triggered by Geert Wilders' disagreements over asylum policy. What were his demands?
He had a 10-point plan, which included closing the Dutch borders to immigrants, stopping family migration, using the Dutch military to police the borders, which all were difficult within European regulations. And when the parties didn't agree with his plan, he decided to collapse the government.
And were the other major parties in that coalition, what were their policies when it comes to asylum policy and immigration?
So these parties had all agreed on quite a big package of limiting migration, including introducing different statuses for different kinds of immigrants, no longer forcing municipalities to house immigrants. So they had quite a big anti-immigration agenda. But in the eyes of Wilders, the cabinet was moving too slowly, and they weren't delivering enough.
Yes, and was this always a fragile coalition? Was this expected that, this coalition wouldn't really be able to gel together and hold on for too long?
This was not the first crisis that this coalition has seen. In the 11 months in existence, it's seen multiple crises, including a big crisis over migration in the fall. And so many observers said that it's not when, the question is not if this government will fall, but when it will fall. And so in the end, Wilders decided to let it fall at this point on migration, because otherwise it might have fallen, for instance, on the budget or international security or agriculture, which are issues that are less good for him.
So let's go on to these elections that are likely. Was this what Wilders wanted in the first place, so that he can seek out a bigger mandate when the next election is held?
I mean, it's quite clear that he wanted new elections. If he forced new elections, he might get a bigger mandate than he has now. But the problem is that he will need also a majority of parties to govern with him. And the polls currently indicate, obviously those polls can shift, that there's not a majority of parties who would want to cooperate with him, but instead the centrist parties will need to cobble together some kind of coalition. Now, the Dutch voters are very unpredictable, and a lot can happen in the coming months. It will also take quite a while, likely until October, November, until the elections will be held. But still, it's unlikely that Wilders will return to the coalition unless there are big shifts towards him in the electorate.
Yes, and given the results of the last election, where Geert Wilders' party was, gained the most votes and seats in the parliament, what's the general sentiments in the Netherlands about immigration? Do most want a significant reduction?
If you look at the Dutch voters, a majority of them want less migrants to come to the country. But they're also very dissatisfied with the fact that Wilders was unable to deliver this. Now, people see this differently. Some say that his policies were not realistic, and perhaps should have pursued a more realistic course. Other people point to the coalition parties that blocked some of his more far-reaching proposals. But there is a general sentiment in the country to limit migration, but there's unhappiness that this coalition was unable to deliver.
Yes, and do you think this has also forced not just the centrist parties, but also the leftist parties to perhaps reconfigure how they might approach this upcoming election?
So, I mean, you see that the parties of the left respond differently. Some parties have already indicated openness to working on migration, not necessarily asylum migration, which is Wilders' most important issue, but also labor migration, which is a larger group of people coming into the country, and other parties taking a more principled stance, for instance, on asylum migration. So you see different positions there, but it's clearly an issue that will be important in the campaign.
And might this, political chaos at the moment jeopardize the NATO summit that's due to be held later this month in The Hague?
It won't jeopardize the NATO summit, but the Netherlands was the host country. And if there was a ruling coalition, it's likely that they were able to present a plan to reach the 5% goal that Mark Rutte is currently talking about, Secretary General of NATO. And the fact that there isn't a coalition able to present those plans means that the momentum that the Dutch might have wanted is unlikely to develop.
Yes, and generally, how is not just NATO allies, but the European Union seeing this from the outside in? Do they see the Netherlands as unstable at the moment politically, that may not be as reliable as before?
So the Netherlands is very unstable. This is not the first time we had a coalition fall, not even the first time in 4 years we had a coalition fall, so that's part of the Dutch political system. I think it's important to see not that the instability isn't the key thing, but we see a lot of shifting winds in Europe, in particular where it comes to spending, where the Netherlands has always been a very frugal country, and that the number of countries that share this frugal position, that the EU should spend less, that group is shrinking now to this one country. Even the Danes, traditionally very frugal, are moving away from that position. So I think, in general, the expectation would be that after the elections, perhaps the Netherlands can become closer to the main lines in Europe, for instance, where it comes to defense spending.
Okay, on to those elections then. Simon, Otjes, really appreciate your insights there from the Netherlands. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.